What's your stance on gun control?
I think that there are problems with access to firearms in the U.S. today, and I think there are a couple of pretty simple changes that we could make to U.S. policy to kind of alleviate some of the problems we have with deaths related to firearms in the U.S. today.
Give me an example of problems with guns today.
People killing themselves, people killing other people, people dying accidentally, children killing themselves with firearms, stuff like that.
Is it the gun fault?
The gun is like a force amplifier.
What do you mean?
So somebody might have a bad idea or an inclination to do something bad, and a firearm gives you the ability to do more bad than you would otherwise. For instance, if I wanted to go on a killing spree with a knife, I'm probably not going to be able to kill as many people as I could with a handgun or a rifle.
That's amazing. What do you say to that?
It's interesting because the gun that they're talking about banning the most is the AR-15, and it only kills about 30 people a year. Well, the people with AR-15s only kill about 30 people a year versus what he mentioned, knives and hammers kill many more people per year, according to the FBI. So, I don't know. It's interesting that the gun that kills the least amount of people is the one that they want to ban, but I think that there's more nefarious reasons for that, in my opinion.
How do you respond to that?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Rifles don't kill very many people in the year compared to other types of violence. Some of the most exaggerated violent events tend to happen with rifles, like the Las Vegas shooting, for instance. But I mean, there are plenty of school shootings. I think the Virginia Tech shooter, I want to say, used handguns.
Right.
Handguns, though, are typically or not typically, but they're definitely by far the most deadly firearm for shootings around the U.S.
Have you ever owned a gun?
Yeah, I have a Glock 17 and a Mosin.
And have you shot it before?
Yeah, of course.
You're not afraid of guns, right?
No, definitely.
Oh, okay. And you would never just get up, because if you didn't touch your gun, it would never shoot anyone or anything, right?
That's not necessarily true.
Your gun would shoot someone on its own?
Not on its own, but somebody could find the gun. Somebody could break into your house and use the gun. A child could find the gun. I mean,
that's amazing. But they can also find a knife in your house. You have knives at home?
They could, but accidentally shooting yourself with a knife or accidentally killing yourself with a knife is probably a lot more difficult to do than with a firearm you found.
Amazing. Do you own a gun?
Yes.
Have you ever shot a gun?
Yes.
And are you afraid of them?
No.
Why do they blame the gun rather than the people?
I think people in general, human beings, are always looking for something to blame something on, right? Because they can't necessarily explain evil, right? They can't explain something as crazy as someone walking into a school and shooting young, innocent children. So humans, I think, inherently want to try to find something to blame. And we're seeing the same exact problem in London right now. So London has banned handguns, the UK in its entirety, pretty much for the most part. It's very difficult to obtain a firearm legally in the city of London. However, they're now putting metal detectors in schools to detect knives because people are killing each other with knives over there. They're talking about banning tip knives. Doctors are calling for knife amnesty programs over there, and they even have knife turn-in bins on the street in the city of London. The Met Police Department just did a study, a gang study, and they're trying to get rid of that study because Sadiq Khan, the mayor, called that study racist because it determined that the majority of the gang violence, the majority of the stabbings, is perpetrated by black teens, and the victims are black teens. So they have a big knife problem there. They just surpassed the murder rate of New York City recently, and New York City has 900,000 legally owned guns compared to London, which has, nearly zero. It's negligible, the amount of legally owned guns that London has. So it's a difficult situation, but we can get into it, certainly.
How do you respond?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to deal with concepts of evil. I don't think we can legislate against making people not evil. I don't know if I necessarily believe that people kill themselves or kill other people because they're evil. It seems like this is usually pretty predictable based on a set of circumstances related to their environment, whether you have one parent in the household, whether you have access to drugs, depending on where you live, the type of education, your socioeconomic class. There's a lot of different factors that will impact whether or not, I guess, you have the proclivity to kill somebody. I mean, I guess it's possible. I notice it's kind of like your theme is to always go back to demographics and gang violence. I don't know what the
statistics show that's true.
Sure, I don't know what the prescription there is. What is the suggestion then? I'm curious.
On what to do?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for instance, Sadiq Khan in London is reinstituting the stop and frisk that he called racist previously. So he's trying to do whatever. I mean, he's trying to go and get knives off. I mean, they're having people going to schools in London. They have this hashtag knife free campaign in London where they're putting it all over the media. They're having people go to schools and visit people and tell young children why it's dangerous to bring knives to school. So London is the perfect example because it just tells me that it's not the tool that the person uses to kill someone or perpetrate harm. It's the person, and it's the people. It's city cons going into the cities and literally stopping gang members and taking knives away from them or machetes and things like that. I mean, you would concede that it's mostly gang members who perpetrate gun violence in the country, correct?
Yeah, that seems to be the case.
Okay,
in the
so I
United States.
mean, if it's and with mostly illegally obtained firearms purchased on the street, you would concede that as well.
That's
correct?
not true. No, I don't believe so.
Well, even Michael Bloomberg would say that. Even Joe Scarborough has said that over 90% of all shootings of all crime guns in the U.S. and he's quoting statistics are illegally obtained on the street.
They might say that, but that's not true.
That is true.
How do you know
Most
it's not
gun
true?
violence
It's not true
is
because it comes
perpetrated
from
by
the
illegally
20
obtained firearms.
Sure, so that comes from a 2016 report that the Bureau of Justice Statistics did,
Right.
and it's oftentimes miscited. The reality is that 90% of guns that are used to commit crimes aren't purchased from a retail source, but only about 43% of those are illegally obtained on the black market.
So
20% of those are obtained from family members or other sources where they have been legally acquired. For instance, in Chicago, I think 60% of firearms can be traced back to legally acquired gun shops that are just outside the city.
Right, so I understand what you're saying. You're saying originally the gun's always purchased legally, but is it illegal, in Chicago for instance, is it illegal to transfer a firearm from Indiana to Chicago? Is that against the law?
Not necessarily. It depends on how the sale is done from one private person to another. This is what liberals complain about all the time.
In the city of Chicago, it is illegal to transfer a weapon and bring it to Chicago and hold it without going to a gun shop and making in the city of Chicago.
Sure, in
So
the
that's
city of
breaking the
Chicago,
law.
but you can transfer firearms from one person to another without having to do like having a federal license or doing some sort of
Not
background
in the
check.
city of Chicago.
What if you purchase it before going to Chicago?
But that's breaking the law. You're bringing the gun into the city of Chicago from Indiana. That's breaking the law. Criminals don't follow laws. That's my point. Is
Sure,
what I'm
but but all of these guns are sourced.
and then the gang members buy it from other gang members on the streets.
So if the guns are sourced legally first, I mean, obtaining them illegally after might be a thing, but the statement that 90% of guns are bought and sold on the black market when a friend could buy you a firearm and then you could just get it from them paints a much different picture than the idea that all these guns are being purchased illegally. There are quite a few that are purchased illegally, sure, but that number is far lower than the 90% that's often
Why is
cited.
it hard to believe that more guns are brought into our country and sold illegally than the guns that you claim are being bought at gun stores? Because we have so many illegal aliens coming in now, and they're bringing guns and they're selling them in the urban areas especially. In Chicago, they have some of the strictest gun laws you ever want to have, but yet the black on black violence is out of control.
Yeah, because most of the guns are brought in from out of the
gun.
city. Yeah.
But that's
they're brought-
illegal. To
no,
bring
they're-
it from out of the city into Chicago, you're already breaking the law. So why would more laws stop that from happening? In my personal opinion, you're just restricting the people who like to follow the laws from having an easy time of purchasing a weapon for their leisure or whatever the case may be. I mean, you said something during the Joe Biggs debate. You said, quote, "The United States has more violent gun crime than any other country in the world right now." Do you still believe that to be true?
Compared to Western countries, I believe that's true.
But you said than any other country
Yeah,
in
that's
the world
probably
right now.
not true. If you want to go to a place like Honduras or something, I'm
Honduras,
sure they're more violent. Typically for the
Venezuela.
United States, I try not to compare ourselves to countries like Honduras or Venezuela. Because I think we should probably shoot to be a little bit higher than that, no pun intended.
Is that like a race thing or?
Why would it be a race thing?
I
Do
don't
you
know.
think that a
Why
country like
is-
Honduras or Venezuela should be what we aim to be slightly better
Brazil?
than?
Brazil has higher gun violence than we do
Sure.
here.
How about countries like France or Germany or the United Kingdom or
Well, I
Spain?
mean, if you want to look at in France and Germany and the United Kingdom, it says, according to the FBI here, if you want to compare us to those countries, you have to go into the statistics. According to the FBI here, this is from the FBI's website, we have 33,000 violent street gangs here in America. Per capita, per 100,000, that's 9.8 per 100,000 in America, versus all of Europe, which has 0.674 per 100,000 gangs to people. So we have many more gangs, many more thousands of gangs to people here than any of those other developed countries do. So you've already conceded that most of the shootings in America are perpetrated by gang members. So why wouldn't you concede that this is the reason why we have higher gun violence here in this country? I mean, it's not even close.
I mean, it might be the reason, but you can take a multifaceted approach to these problems. If anything, I could argue you're making my point for me. If there are so many gangs in the United States, maybe we should restrict access to firearms more as a result of that.
But only the ones who follow the law. For instance, I just went to Las Vegas. They have a large outdoor shop there, a Bass Pro Shop, right there at Silverton Casino, I believe it is. Now, they have very cheap ammunition. I mean, we're talking like $7 for a 50-round box of 9mm ammo. I would love to be able to purchase that ammo and bring it home with me for my leisure here, but I can't. That's a felony in California to be able to transfer ammunition from Las Vegas to here. So I followed the law. Gang members aren't going to do that. You've already said that they're bringing guns that whatever they purchase in Indiana and then into the city of Chicago, which is already breaking the law. So my thing is it's the Second Amendment right. It's in the Constitution. We should be trying, it's more important to protect gun rights than it is to control gun ownership, in my personal opinion. And I think we have to do that without sacrificing people's rights. I think we have to find another way to be able to quell gang violence in this country, however that may be, because there's many illegally obtained guns flowing around in Chicago. It's a trafficking issue. And so we have to find a way to get those guns off the street, which they're already illegally obtained, they're already illegally possessed. So we have to find a way to do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know the best approach to that. And I don't know if you have any suggestions either, but that would be mine.
Yeah, I mean, curbing the ability of people to purchase firearms legally would reduce the circulation of illegal firearms if we understand that at least half of these are coming initially from legal sources. Reducing the amount of people that can purchase a firearm legally means they're less likely to give it to a friend or another gang member. That's one thing. Gun buyback programs have been proposed in several areas and have been done with varying levels of success across different areas. You bring up the UK as an example. They have one of the lowest firearm homicide rates in the world. Now, they do kill people with knives as well, which is a problem that they're dealing with. But
don't we care about the lives?
Yeah, of course. But I mean, you tackle knives next, you tackle gang violence. It's a multifaceted problem.